Welcome to Let's Talk Law, your go-to guide for understanding the civil legal world. I'm your host, Michelle Wargo, and I'm here to help you understand the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I believe in legal access for all. That means everyone should have access to legal knowledge and no-cost legal help when needed. Welcome to Let's Talk Law. On this month's episode, we have an incredible guest joining us, Tiffany Cummins Nick, an Assistant United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, specifically in the Orlando Division. With her extensive experience in prosecuting federal crimes and her dedication to public service, Tiffany brings a wealth of knowledge and insights to our discussion. We'll delve into her journey in law, the protections offered under the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act, and the impact of her work on the community. So grab a seat and join us as we engage in a thought-provoking conversation with Tiffany Cummins Nick. Well, thank you for having me today, Michelle. I am a longtime Orlando resident, with the exception of a few years I spent working in Washington, D.C. I started my career in private practice at large firms doing employment litigation defense and advice work for large companies. Also early in my career, I served as a federal law clerk for United States District Judge Mary Scriven while she was on the federal district court bench here in Orlando, Florida. In 2015, I joined the United States Attorney's Office for the Middle District of Florida as an Assistant United States Attorney. I worked in our criminal division as a prosecutor, prosecuting a variety of federal criminal offenses. And after about 2 years in that role, I transitioned from our criminal division to our civil division to serve as our district's fully dedicated civil rights enforcement attorney. And I've served in our civil rights unit now for about 8 years. And in that role, I investigate alleged violations of a variety of civil rights statutes, including those protecting civil rights in the areas of housing, education, public accommodations, and employment. Currently, I lead the Middle District of Florida's Service Members and Veterans Working Group, and I also serve as our office's United Against Hate Coordinator, where I help to coordinate trainings across the district on federal hate crimes. The Civil Rights Unit for the U.S. Attorney's Office here in the Middle District of Florida, we work in conjunction with the U.S. Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division to enforce federal civil rights laws. Often, when people think of the Department of Justice, they think of criminal prosecutors. Tiffany explains that the Civil Rights Unit does so much more than prosecution. Oftentimes, when folks think of our office, they think of criminal prosecutors, but our Civil Rights Unit is a civil part of our civil division, and so that we can actually file lawsuits for things other than putting people in jail. So we can seek relief when it comes to changes to policies and practices. We can seek compensation for individuals, and we can sometimes obtain civil penalties against, an offending entity. So there is a whole unit that does just civil enforcement of civil rights laws here in our district. And whenever sometimes folks ask us, well, who do I contact, the Department of Justice or the U.S. Attorney's Office? And the answer is you can contact either. We work in collaboration with each other, and we will notify the department if we receive something, and likewise they can notify us if they receive something in our district. So I think sometimes folks don't quite understand the relationship of our office with the Department of Justice. So we are one team, but folks here in the Middle District of Florida do have a civil rights unit that's right here locally. Community Legal, we have had the opportunity to conduct trainings together, and I think even more importantly, when there are matters of particular public importance, Community Legal Aid can notify us, and we review matters sometimes that Community Legal is involved in. We've jointly conducted litigation against particular entities, and as well as review complaints at their early stage to see whether there might be something that the Department of Justice can do about some of the larger systemic issues in our community. Did you know that there are special legal protections offered to service members that the Department of Justice helps to enforce? Assistant U.S. Attorney Tiffany Nick explains that the SCRA, Servicemembers Civil Relief Act, is a federal statute that is enforced by the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. The SCRA stands for the Servicemembers Civil Relief Act, and that is a federal statute which helps service members manage the transition to active duty through a range of protections. Those protections can concern foreclosures, repossessions, leasing agreements, evictions, interest rates, and default judgments. And most recently, in January 2023, the SCRA was amended to include license portability for those who have professional licenses and have to relocate due to military service. So there are a wide variety of protections that the SCRA provides. It is highly technical, but the SCRA provides a wide range of benefits and protections to those who are in military service. Military service is defined under the Act to include full-time active duty members of the 5 military branches, as well as reservists on federal active duty and members of the National Guard on federal orders for a period of time of more than 30 days. The SCRA also provides certain benefits and protections to service member dependents, and in certain instances to those who co-signed a loan or took out a loan with a service member. Under the SCRA, the dependent includes a service member's spouse, children, and any other person for whom the service member has provided more than half of their financial support for the past 180 days. The SCRA's benefits and protections include things like a 6% interest rate cap on financial obligations that were incurred prior to military service. They include the ability to stay civil court proceedings, protections in connections with default judgments, protections in connection with residential or apartment lease terminations, and protections in connection with evictions, mortgage foreclosures, and installment contracts such as car loans when the service member goes into military service. Stay tuned. We will have more with attorney Tiffany Cummins Nick from the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Unit when we return. You're watching Let's Talk Law.
Know your rights before the next disaster strikes. At Community Legal Services, we help hurricane victims by providing no-cost legal services for housing, insurance disputes, debt collection, foreclosures, and more. Be prepared. Visit legalaccessforall.org to learn more.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Law. I'm your host, Michelle Wargo. Our guest today is Tiffany Cummins Nick, an Assistant United States Attorney for the Middle District of Florida, Orlando Division. The Service Members and Veterans Working Group is based here in the Middle District of Florida, but it really serves the whole state. And the idea is to connect those who serve service members, veterans, and military survivors so that we can connect the different silos of information together. And so therefore, if a service member or a veteran has a question or a legal need, they can reach out to our resources within the group. In order to, if the Department of Justice can't help them, we have resources within the working group that we can point them in that direction to better serve their needs. This just recently launched in June of this year, June of 2024. And we have got members from military installations, from state and federal agencies, from legal aid organizations across the Middle District. While the working group is based here in the Middle District of Florida, it really does serve those across the state because we have such a wide array of resources that have joined the group and who are looking to further its mission of serving these communities. Tiffany explains how her office serves the public by enforcing civil rights. Well, our Office's Civil Rights Unit seeks to benefit the public by ensuring that federal civil rights laws are enforced. We want to see that violations are addressed through changes to policies and practices to prevent them from occurring again. And oftentimes we're able to get compensation for those who have been harmed by the violation.
We also benefit the public by serving as a resource to better educate folks in the district about federal civil rights laws and who is protected by them. Sometimes folks or entities that may violate federal civil rights law just don't know what the law is. So one of the roles that we serve is to better educate the public and inform them about what individuals' rights are under the different statutes that we enforce.
Community Legal Services works closely with pro bono attorneys and the Department of Justice to make sure our clients have the best resources and representation. Tiffany has some parting words on the importance of our partnership.
As I've mentioned here today, our authority can be limited to pattern or practice lawsuits. But there are individuals who may have been aggrieved who need assistance in vindicating their rights. So both pro bono attorneys and legal aid organizations are absolutely critical in ensuring that those who are most vulnerable in our society, those perhaps who might not be able to afford their own legal representation, to ensure that they can vindicate their rights. So it's critical. While we have resources at our fingertips at the federal government level, we are limited in what we're able to do in enforcing civil rights based on our jurisdiction. So the role of pro bono attorneys and legal aid organizations is critical to ensuring equal opportunity for those in our district.
If you would like to contact the U.S. Attorney's Office Civil Rights Unit, visit the website on your screen or call the number. After the break, we will visit the WFTV studio for Law Talk, where Community Legal Services CEO Jeff Harvey and WFTV reporter Q Mccray sat down with Florida Supreme Court Justice Jamie Grosshans. You're watching Let's Talk Law, your go-to guide for understanding the civil legal world. We'll be right back.
What are you supposed to do when the world is crashing down on you?
$300. I'm so sorry. We have options and we can help.
Protecting families, their health and livelihoods, all at no cost. Community Legal Services, legal access for all.
Hello and welcome to WFTV's Law Talk, your guide to understanding the law and how it impacts our community.
We break down complicated legal topics as part of our mission to ensure legal access for all.
I'm Q Mccray alongside Jeff Harvey, the CEO of Community Legal Services throughout Central Florida. Together, we're here to bring you insights about the legal system and the services that support it.
We talk with influential changemakers and explore their approach to these important issues.
So join us as we amplify the voices of those who are striving to make justice accessible to all. You're watching Law Talk.
Turning complex legal jargon into everyday talk. That's WFTV's Law Talk, sponsored by Community Legal Services.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today. And we have a very special guest, someone I've been meaning to talk to for some time. See you all the time on the news, but never in this capacity. With us today is Florida Supreme Court Justice Jamie Grosshans.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a delight to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us today. We have a lot to get to. I was going through your resume. It's about...
Please don't talk about
it's long. I mean, you're a mom, you're a public servant, you were a lawyer, you're a judge now. What made you get into law as a career?
You know, it was never something I was planning on doing. I had a lot of other ideas, dolphin training, FBI agent, several other things. And I kind of stumbled into law, frankly. Just, it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. I decided to take the entrance exam for law school about 2 weeks before it was due, got in at the last possible moment, didn't even know there were law school rankings at the time. I had never met a female attorney before. I was from a small town in Mississippi, and things fell into place, and that's what I ended up doing. I ended up moving to Florida, started out as a prosecutor right here in Orange County, and eventually had 3 beautiful children who keep me, by the way, very grounded. If anyone wants to know, how you stay grounded, it's the eye rolls of a teenager that do it. But ended up settling in Florida.
Terrific. Well, welcome back to Central Florida right now.
Thank you.
Well, can you talk about, though, the process of becoming a lawyer and then eventually becoming a Supreme Court judge?
Sure. So, I practiced for several years and just, never really thought about being a judge either. And then I was at an event here in Orlando listening to a judge speak, and he was talking about public service, giving back to your community. And I looked at my husband and I said, maybe I'd like to do that someday. I think I might like to be a judge. And, it just, I started reading, I started developing a lot of things about what type of judge I would be, that type of thing. A lot of studying goes into learning all the cases and being able to answer questions and that type of thing. And then just observing all the judges that I was practicing in front of who, this circuit, this area of Florida has, I think, some of the best in the whole country. And so being able to observe them, and then ended up applying to be a county court judge, which was my first position. And so I was a county court judge here in Orange County, possibly the best job in the world. Don't tell my colleagues now. But it really was an amazing experience. And then I just kind of was willing to serve wherever needed. I would have loved staying a county court judge, but there was an opportunity to be on the 5th District Court of Appeal. So I was able to do that for a while, and then this job. And so everyone has been incredible, and I'm just very happy to be able to serve.
That's great. I think a lot of people watch, let's say, Law and Order, and they watch the court shows, they see the judge up there. I think a lot of times we might maybe underestimate what a judge actually does. I mean, you're more than just the moderator in these court cases.
Right. It's, being able to know the law, to apply the law as it's written to each particular case. And, those trial judges, the ones that are in those courtrooms every day, they're working behind the scenes, reading all the things that lawyers throw at them, and trying to really serve the community in the best way they can with the time they have. So they're really the troopers.
There you go.
What would you say the most rewarding part of being a justice, or when you were a judge is?
I think when I was an Orange County court judge, I'll never forget my first jury trial as a judge. So I'd done trials as a lawyer, but my first one as a judge, and you watch the jury come in. And, it's a misdemeanor case. It's, probably not the end of the world for most people, but for the defendant, it certainly is a very important thing. And so to watch that jury come in and to tell them that they were fulfilling sort of a civic duty that we've been doing for 200 years, that's part of our constitutional heritage, I'll never forget that moment. I was about to tear up, about to sing the Star Spangled Banner. I'm sure all the potential jurors were wondering what was going on with this crazy judge who seemed to get choked up about a jury trial.
Right.
But I'll just never forget that. And now in this job, I get to travel all over the state, and I'm just amazed by Florida. We have Palatka, and we have Miami, and we have Orlando, and we have Fort Walton Beach, and Jacksonville, and they all exist in this wonderful state. And the needs of the state are broad and different, and trying to figure out how to meet and help meet the legal needs of so many different people, so many different communities can be overwhelming, but very rewarding.
Yeah. So also, as part of your job as a justice, you're responsible for the profession of law across the state of Florida. Talk to us a little bit about what you see, and even the court, if you can speak on behalf of the court to a degree, the role of lawyers in this system that made you tear up in the middle of this jury trial, right?
So, I unabashedly think that we live in the greatest country in the world. And since its founding, lawyers have been viewed as really sort of the principal keepers of the rule of law. Historians have talked about it, early 1800s, that it was really the lawyer's role to preserve the republic as we knew it. And you don't see that in other countries. That's not the lawyer's role in England, for example, and so I think that's just so special that we have that here. For 100 years or more, people graduate law at Harvard college, they're told, or I should say Harvard Law, so I don't get in trouble, Harvard Law, they're told that they are about to, they're now given the ability to apply the wise restraints that make men free. And that's the rule of law. That is the ability to understand that the laws apply equally to everyone, that they're there to avoid sort of tyranny, oppression, all the things they were trying to get away from in England in 1776. It's the lawyer's job today to do that. The oath to the Florida bar. The very first thing is you're swearing that you will uphold the United States Constitution and the Florida Constitution. And then just a few sentences later, it says, you'll essentially deny yourself, deny your own personal preferences, and you will not forget the cause of the defenseless or the oppressed. Because those things go hand in hand. Upholding the rule of law with an oath to the Constitution also includes not forgetting the oppressed, the defenseless, to make sure that those laws apply equally to everyone. We don't have barons and manors for a reason. We have equality under the law, and I think that that's such an important role that lawyers have.
But what resources are out there to fill that gap, if you will, between the legal community and those who might be marginalized?
Right, absolutely. There are a lot of resources out there. There's never enough. And so we are always looking to do better. So I say this with this air of we are on a constant attempt at improvement. But we have so many things that we do. Florida lawyers alone donated in 2023, I believe about $7.5 million to legal aid organizations and 1.5 million hours of time to free legal aid. So just right there, I think the lawyers are stepping up and doing what they can. The other thing is we have amazing legal aid organizations all over the state. People can Google, search, look up local legal aid organizations. There's a lot of resources out there for people on that front. And I think the Florida court system, before my time, this was started, and it's just, I'm so impressed that people had the vision to be able to do this. But if you go right now and you look up Florida Court DIY or help.flcourts.gov, you're gonna find a website that has a just wealth of information, including forms, back and forth questions that you can do. They'll tell you step by step how to fill out forms for simplified dissolution of marriage, for injunctions, for residential eviction cases. If those are the type of things you're facing, you can go on these websites and they'll even be able to describe how to file them. And there's even a way to file straight from there to the court system. And so there's just a wealth of resources there that we're trying. The Florida bar has been great. They're constantly looking for new ways to expand and to be able to meet more needs, both locally and statewide.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Well, I have one last question for you. I think your story is amazing, from your humble beginnings to where you are right now. For children who might be watching this, or parents who want to encourage their kids, especially little girls, because I have one at home, what is your message to them?
That's such a good question. I think I would say, first of all, never stop reading. I am the person I am because I started reading and I read everything. I lived in the public library. I read every book that there was, and I lived in a world that was far bigger than a small town in Mississippi. And so I think that reading, whether you're a parent encouraging someone to read, whether you're a kid who doesn't really like reading, reading can take you places that you never imagined. And then once you imagine them, then you work really hard to get there. Nothing comes easy. Everything requires work. But I have 3 kids, and I just say, work hard, do your best, and you will make happen what needs to happen for you.
You've obviously mentioned legal aid, but what are some other resources that might be out there to help people?
One thing that I think that we have in Florida that's just amazing is a wealth of clerks all over the state who are really devoted to helping their communities. Here in the Ninth Circuit, for instance, in Orange County, there is a self-help center now that the clerk's office has done, where you can actually have a consultation with lawyers at a very minimal cost for things like residential evictions, family matters, things like that. It's so beneficial, and so we really appreciate that. But you know, most people can walk into any clerk's office in the state and have people there who are able to assist, to direct, to forms, to things that might make the process seem a little bit more manageable to the average person walking into a courthouse, because it is overwhelming. It's a busy place.
You had talked earlier about the United States being very unique as a country, and I know exactly what you're talking about firsthand, because on a deployment to Iraq, I had an interpreter who was a lawyer, and he used to ask me all the time, "What is freedom? Like, I don't understand this freedom thing." Right. And so I guess my question for you is, what would you say to the people of Florida, the lawyers of Florida, given, I think, your role on the court and your outlook on the profession?
I would say that we're to be the best examples of what it means to be a community leader and a community servant. And, you know, being involved in your community, helping, whether it is volunteering, you know, it doesn't have to be that you work for a legal aid organization like you do, Jeff, or you're running and helping people all the time. You can help people by being the best lawyer that you can be, by acting with professionalism, by treating other people with civility, by showing your clients what that looks like, to disagree with someone, but do it in a civil manner. And no matter what type of law you're practicing, I so appreciate those lawyers who are out there doing complex business litigation and then taking the time to volunteer to be a guardian ad litem for a child who really needs help. You know, that is just as important and just as significant as anything I do or anything, you know, other people do who spend full time because you're making a difference for someone.
It all matters.
It all matters. Every single client, every single volunteer hour, every single drudgery moment, it matters.
Well, thank you so very much for your time, for your insight, for all the information.
Thank you. It's been wonderful to be here. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Great.